Herman Miller, a design-driven corporation known for beautiful, timeless furniture crafted by legendary designers and fueled by progressive leader DJ Dupree. Its designers have produced some of the most iconic pieces of furniture of the past century, such as George Nelson's Marshmallow Chair, Charles and Ray Eames' molded plywood chairs, Isamu Noguchi's Noguchi Table, and Bill Strumpf and Don Chadwick's Aeron Chair. However, they created one product which would revolutionize workspaces around the world. A product that was not just a single piece of beautifully designed furniture, but an entire system distinguished by its function. A product which is still installed in workplaces today, nearly 50 years later. A product which allowed Herman Miller to grow from a mid-sized private company to an industry-leading public corporation. That product is the Action Office. The story of the Action Office begins with Robert Probst, a sculptor and inventor who saw himself more as a researcher studying the world than a designer. His perpetual discontent with the environment around him and ability to envision bold solutions for the future aligned with Herman Miller's hunger for innovation and attracted the attention of DJ Dupree. Dupree was able to recruit him through the creation of a new branch of the company, the Herman Miller Research Corporation, for which Probst was to direct. With the prompt of expanding Herman Miller's offerings beyond furniture, Probst and his small creative team worked with freedom in a humble workshop from Ann Arbor, Michigan, 150 miles from the company's headquarters. The Research Corporation followed Probst's belief that diversity keeps the innovation process healthy by exploring diverse projects ranging from college dormitories to a doctor's office in a van. Their research-first, design-later mentality allowed for faster product development and gave validity to concepts pitched to upper management. From his own discontent with his personal workspace and that of the Research Corporation, Probst proposed the topic of how to create the best environment for thinking as the first topic for his group to focus on. After initial research, Probst declared, "Today's office is a wasteland. It is the daily scene of unfulfilled intentions and failed efforts. It fosters both mental and physical decline and depresses capability to perform." Office furniture had failed to properly adapt to the societal changes of the workplace after World War II, resulting in an unproductive and unhealthy workforce. The typewriter, telephone, and copy machine had become staples of the office as the nature of work progressed from repetitive tasks to knowledge and decision-based work. As companies flourished, they began to value their work environments, yet needed them to adapt to their ever-evolving needs. Meanwhile, over in Germany, the Quickborner team developed the concept of the Bürolandschaft, which translates to office landscape. It was a spatial planning system based on informational flow. Their system featured a large open-plan system with strategically placed groupings, creating an organic flow through the space and reduced space-defined hierarchy. As they began to study the office in 1960, Probst and his team posed fundamental questions such as, what is the purpose of the office? What is the nature of work in the office? Or what effects does the office have on productivity and health of the worker? These fundamental questions provided a framework for the identification of user needs. To answer these questions, Probst and his team applied various methods and techniques, most of which would have seemed foreign to designers of that era. First, they investigated the experience of the office through experiential observation of their own office spaces, as well as the Herman Miller headquarters. This experiment made users aware of the effect of their environment on their work, leading towards more questions to further refine the research areas. As the work progressed, prototypes were tested through models and experience, which was easy to test in their own workplace. They turned to a more scientific approach, referring to experts in behavioral sciences and medical research. From a Harvard psychologist, they studied how the mind stores and organizes information, which led to the organizational systems and filing system of the Action Office. Anthropological studies about human positioning during communication helped to define that the desk should be positioned facing away from the door in a private office, as this doubles productivity. Medical data provided them with information on how the sedentary nature of white-collar work leads to a decrease in energy, vitality, and body tone. This data backed Probst's previous theory that an active workspace is a healthier workplace. The team at Herman Miller Research Corporation also spent a good amount of their time observing the office patterns and habits of individuals they called exceptional performers, or people known for their creativity, leadership, or productivity. From these observations, They noted the use of multiple workstations, which became a key design element of the Action Office. As a final step in their research, they tested different prototypes by giving users a creativity test while using the workspace. This study showed that vertical surfaces displaying information led to increased idea production, so this feature was integrated into the vertical tackboard panels in the Action Office. With these and other insights in hand, Herman Miller was now tasked with designing the actual product. The design of the first Action Office was a joint effort between Robert Probst and Herman Miller chief designer George Nelson. From his experience with the research, Probst defined the functions of the Action Office, while Nelson handled the styling of the actual furniture. After 3 years of research and design, the first Action Office launched in 1964 as the world's first modular office system. It arrived to much fanfare as one of the first modern office designs to match the modern skyscrapers which rose up around it. It featured multiple modules for storage, standing work, or seated work arranged in customizable formations to define the space without walls and encourage movement. The desks and shelves featured vertical display surfaces for a more visible display of information. The desk featured a closable roll top so work could be locked away at night without disturbing workflow, but was short enough so that it wouldn't allow for inactive paper piles. A footrest bar improved ergonomics while sitting, marking one of the first times ergonomics was considered in an office product. In fact, Nelson's design was so futuristic, colorful, and praised by the design community that it was even used on the set of 2001: A Space Odyssey. However, the functions designed by Probst's research were not as well received. Cynical executives resisted the immense change, and architects and interior designers couldn't understand how to place it within the office. Despite efforts by Herman Miller, like the establishment of an education center, the Action Office was too early, too expensive, and too different. Additionally, Nelson and Probst had different visions for the Action Office, which resulted in a cumbersome, disjointed product. The revolutionary product Probst created worked better in a research lab than an actual office, but for Probst, the first version was just a prototype to learn from. For the second iteration, Probst assumed the reins as designer. Probst and his team immediately began working on the second version and stuck to his design process by testing the next prototype, called the pedestal wall, at the University of Tennessee School of Architecture. And business and manufacturing considerations from the first attempt led to an improved, lighter, and more flexible system constructed from cheaper materials. Action Office 2 debuted in 1967. Its refined 120-degree partitions allowed for greater privacy while retaining the potential for unexpected conversations. The partitions also allowed for vertical display surface and infrastructure for mounting customizable components. The biggest barrier to the success of the Action Office system was not the design of the product itself, but the distribution of information regarding the proper deployment of Action Office to fit the needs of each individual space and institution. Pairing with Herman Miller's marketing chief, Joe Swartz, they created books, videos, photos, pamphlets, and other material to aid space planners in proper deployment of the Action Office system. For example, one of the major complaints with an open plan and Action Office system is the lack of acoustical privacy. So to address this concern, Probst published the Action Office Acoustic Handbook as a guide to spatial planners on how to control the acoustics of a space. Swartz also ran an extremely popular seminar program with the belief that if the customer better understood the product, they would want to buy it. A marketing strategy that never would have been considered if the product was not based so heavily in research. Because of the grounding in Probst's research, Swartz could deliver actual data as opposed to company propaganda that buyers were used to receiving. And the results were stunning. The information-based approach actually worked, and a year after the release of Action Office 2, Herman Miller saw a $10 million increase in their annual revenue. Differentiated by its function, the Action Office created waves through the entire industry. Unfortunately, the function of the product is much easier to rip off than the appearance. So soon, poorly designed and executed imposters began to infiltrate the market. However, these copies lacked half the product, the research and information which defined the user's experience beyond the flexible partitions. As corporations grew and space planners were pressured by bottom-line businesses to value efficiency and cost over health and productivity, The 120-degree corners of Action Office gave way to square boxes that were mocked in Dilbert cartoons and hated by nearly all office dwellers. The devolution of the Action Office is a sad story of design intent failing as it intersects with the needs and priorities of business leaders. A system designed to improve the life of employees conversely became a symbol of employee hatred of their corporation. However, the process is the true winner in the creation of Action Office. The research process laid out by Probst at the Herman Miller Research Corporation still plays a key role in the furniture industry as well as in other product design fields. Some of the insights laid out by Probst were even used in the creation of Herman Miller's newest office system, the Living Office. And with the Living Office, visual communication of information about the system is still a key mechanism for sales. The Action Office propelled a company forward, revolutionized an industry, and its legacy, both positive and negative, continues to influence our daily life today, nearly 50 years after its inception. Now that is the sign of a truly incredible product.